Good morning once again, and thank you for staying tuned to Sunrise at Sea. How are you? I hope you're having a wonderful start to your day, just like we are. Welcome to Our Views, and in this segment, we talk about everything and anything that impacts our day-to-day lives. My name is Apollo Sarah. In studio with me are the ladies. I have Agi Uwase, I have Shivan Auma, and I have Priva Elibas. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good. Well.
Are you all right?
Oh, yes.
It started off a bit chilly, but then it's starting to get warmer. I hope it stays warm the whole day. I really do.
It should.
And so today, ladies, I want to discuss something. I think it's something that we have all experienced, but it's something that has been heavy on my heart. So I bring it here so that we can help me today. And today I want to discuss regret. And regret always gets bad press, all right? Well, it's an emotion that can weigh heavy on your heart, on your mind, and you find yourself in a position where you're thinking of, I should have, I could have, I would have, or even worse, I wish I had. Do you understand? Or I wish I had not. So regret is such a strong emotion, and that is what we're going to be discussing today. And the big question of the day is, does regret help us make better decisions? But before we get into that, I want to define what regret is. Well, regret is a feeling of sadness about something sad or wrong, or about a mistake that you have made and wish that you could have done different or better. Other people go on to define regret as an emotion of wishing one had made a different decision in the past because the consequences of the decision were unfavorable. So ladies, have you ever been in a position where you have felt regret? Have you?
Oh, yeah. I think I have. I think I've been in a position where it wasn't like a bad thing, like I'd done something bad, but maybe I'll give an example, like when you overshare with someone. And you're like, what the freak? What did I do? Like, what was that? You have that community depression, that kind of embarrassment. Like, what was I? What is that? I wish I hadn't said this. I wish I hadn't done that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say I've experienced regret, but not for things that are way overboard that I cannot fix. Now, because when you cannot fix something, regret may happen. It may come as an emotion, but it's not the solution at the end of the day. So yeah, that's what I would say.
So you only regret things that you had a direct participation or involvement in. But if it happened, it was not you. You feel nothing. You have no regrets. What about you, Agi?
Regret. I've said it 3 times, and I think I'm someone who doesn't regret, really. Because I feel like if I cannot change something, then I shouldn't actually make a fuss of it.
Yeah.
You see, when you talked about oversharing, I have been in that position before, like so many years ago, where you find you're really oversharing. Maybe you're having a good time, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and you end up, spilling secrets and saying things that you could have actually kept to yourself. And then later I'm like, oh my goodness, how does this person perceive me? The perception of me might actually change. Maybe they'll start treating me a lot different. But then I realized the moment you wallow in self-pity because, you've already done something that you cannot change, especially these are words already said. If they're in this person's head, they'll never, they are there, and they can choose how to treat you after that. Yeah. And that is something that you have no control over. So I told myself, if I cannot control something, then I'm not going to make a fuss of it.
You're not going
if I have said something and I cannot take it back, whether I regret, whether I wallow in self-pity, whether I cry about it, I cannot change it. So it's literally a waste of time. So I told myself, and I learned over time not to regret. And with that, I started being a little bit more conscious in what I say, in what I do, so that I don't find myself in such a situation.
Okay, what about you, Shiva?
Regret. I feel like every single time I've come out to tell someone the truth, I have regretted it after. Because you know, like how you keep saying that very many times you want people to be honest, we want the truth. But when we tell people the truth, they're like, eh. So very many times I feel like I've been overly honest and hurt people's feelings, so I regret it. Maybe it's the way I pass on the message. I need to be more kinder. But I feel like every single time that I have been honest and told people what's on my mind, I have regretted it, because then they start acting dubious and start acting shady, and I'm dealing with a whole other frustration. But regret is definitely something I have been through. Very many times I have taken decisions that I have regretted.
Yeah.
I would say that most of the things that I regret in my life are things that are directly connected with me, where I am the one who made the decision.
Yeah.
Then there I will regret it, because I had a choice either not to do it or to do it, and I chose to do it. So here we are. But if it's not directly connected to me, then I don't think that's a situation I would regret.
All right. Well, anyway, there are two types of regret. And there are basically two ways to experience regret. Number one is what researchers refer to, and I'm going to just quote this. It says, one is what researchers refer to as the action path, where you directly were involved or participated in that action or decision, or you said some things that you shouldn't have said. And the other is the inaction path, where you were not directly involved or participated in it, and it actually is a path where you did not do anything about the situation. So for instance, your friend got humiliated in public, and you did not do anything about it. You did not stand up for her. You did not. That is the inaction part. So sometimes, yes, we are in a position where the action or circumstance does not directly affect us, but also researchers say the inaction path is the one that haunts people the most, where you feel like, I should have done something about it. I should have spoken up about it. I should have, defended this person, or I should have taken that job. You understand? Where you have, say, 2 job opportunities, and then you take one and then don't take the other one, and you're like, I didn't do that.
Down the road, you're like,
So what about you ladies? Does that ever haunt you? Aggie, you always say you just said that you feel nothing if it has nothing to do with you, or if you cannot control the circumstances. So have you ever felt any regret of not taking action?
Not taking action.
Yeah.
No, because I feel like if I could take action, then I should. I'll just give you an example. I think it was yesterday. I was going through social media and I saw a video. I don't know if you watched it. It was actually in the shade room. There was this black unarmed, and also how do they call it? Those people were always seated by the street.
Vendors?
Not vendors.
I saw it. It was a disabled Nigerian man who was
assaulted by an Italian man.
And
yes,
people, and actually beaten to death.
Onlookers were actually just taking videos. Everyone was passing by. No one did anything about it. And I asked myself, everyone was condemning. You could have done something. You could have. And you ask yourself, why did someone just walk past these people and never did anything? Maybe some people, they have fears of what if, I jump in to help, and then I'm also assaulted. Maybe I take, how do they call it, a bullet for someone in that situation. So rarely do I regret not doing something about anything. If I don't do something about it, it means I wasn't in position to do it in the first place. You see? So, but if I'm in position to do something, if it's to help someone, if it's to step in a situation, then I would do it without actually. I think sometimes I'm impulsive, especially if I find like, maybe a child is assaulting another child. I know I'm stronger than them, right? I know I'm stronger than them. So I could actually chip in and do something about it. But in the event that I know I couldn't do anything about the situation, I have no regrets whatsoever.
So for you sit back and you're like, what is the
I pray, I'm like,
best
God,
likely
calm down.
possible outcome for me in this situation?
Yes, sometimes you have to actually assess situations, because you could take a bullet for someone. You could actually, you've seen people actually what
jump into a swimming pool and save someone from drowning.
Because out of impulsivity, and you're the one who drowned. And maybe sometimes people are actually charged of manslaughter. Usually that is a crime that could have been that you could have avoided. That's accidental. It could happen to you. So for me, I think assess actually the situation before you chip in. But sometimes it's too late.
Do you know what is coming to mind when Aggie is saying all that? Have you seen the meme of the guy who is mowing his lawn, he's cutting his grass, and yet his neighbor's house is on fire?
It's not none of my business.
You see, I don't think I've been put in a position where I'm supposed to help or do something about a situation, and I fail to do it. I think I'm not going to say I'm not righteous. I'm not like self-righteous and I'm like the best person out there. But sometimes you put in a situation and you're like, hey, what would Jesus do? You know, like what would Jesus do? Yeah, you get
the fall already.
It took the fall, but sometimes you have to ask yourself like, what would Jesus do actually? Because you cannot get to a place, and someone is the example that you guys described for the viewers. You cannot get in a space and someone is being assaulted, someone is being, they're taking life away from him, and you just stand by, pull out your phone and start recording. Maybe the least you could have done is at least dial 911 and call the police and, have someone on ground and, come and help them. Now we've seen these things happen in Uganda, especially mob justice. They found a thief the other side, but is death the only option? Is that the only viable, solution that you see at the moment? So for me, it's more of like, it also goes back to how we are, I think, in our hearts, like how human are you? Just like you explained, someone can just decide to mind someone can decide to mind their own business, like you're dying and they're like, this doesn't concern me, so let me focus on me. But I don't think I've been put in a situation where I'm supposed to do something and I don't, and then I regret. Unless, of course, it directly affects me, because
it's above
I've been in a situation I was like, I wish I didn't meet that guy, but
you met
it's a regret, but you met, so it's like, accept it for what it is and move on.
When you talked about the inaction thing, you see, very many times we're very quick to say why. For example, the example that you ladies just gave, you might blame the passers-by for saying, why didn't you do anything? But let's take a look at the number of stories that we see on social media, or the stories that we even hear from our circle of friends, where our friends have intervened in situations as wanting to be a hero, or trying to save someone's life, or trying to save the situation, or you're trying to save your friend from domestic violence, but you end up being what? You end up being the bad person in the picture. So some people will actually mind their own business. Yes, I'm mowing my grass, your house is on fire. The last time I interjected, I got a slap of my life, so I would rather mind my own business. So I don't think I would blame people who choose not to take action. However, I don't think I have found myself in a situation where I see something, I'm not pleased with it, and then I walk away. Because one, my personality is that I like to be involved in everyone's business. I am always poking my nose to know what's going on here. Are you okay? Are you well? Of course, it has a downside to it, but I would rather do that than sit back and then regret and say, I wish I had texted Aggie when I constantly, saw her posting, suicidal things. You get, like, come out of your comfort zone and ask someone, are you well? Are you okay? So that you do not regret, because then you won't be able to live with yourself for the rest of your life. What she defined.
Sarah mentioned empathy, and I see where she's coming from. Like, you want to be involved, you want to know what's up, are you okay, are you good? But it reminds me of a friend of mine back in I think it was 2018, 2017. He was in his final year doing software engineering, and he had gone to the beach. It was evening, the waves are coming in so heavy and so tough. And then one of his friends was stuck somewhere in there. And being the empathetic person that he is, he jumps in the water, and the waves swung him, I think, by a rock, and, hit his head, and he died. And sometimes I know we want to be
the hero.
Yes.
And it comes from a good place.
Yeah, and it comes from a good place, but, also, evaluate your options. Assess them, yes. What exactly are you putting yourself in? It's good for you to help someone else, but make sure you're also safe in the long run. You understand? So
I feel like it's a very tough choice to make. If you have to choose between helping someone and your own life, because you think, okay, it's crazy. It's really crazy.
This was a young man with, ambitions, dreams, 24 years of, age, and just like that, he exited the earth just for being selfless and, being kind. We also had the example of the young lady back at, was it Budo Parents Primary?
The young girl.
The young girl who kept going in to save her friends and her friends, but she lost her life at the end of it. So I love kind people, but please
is it worth
worry
it
about
at the
yourself.
End of the day?
To some extent, worry about yourself.
But but you see, for her, I know it ended in a tragedy, but she went on to save a number of her colleagues, and forever her memory will always be cherished and remembered. That is somebody, I feel, who served her purpose in life.
I almost feel
like
yes,
hero.
maybe that is her purpose.
She's a hero. She's a
Yes.
true definition of a hero. If I were to go and meet the creator, at least I would like to go that way. Helping somebody else. I'm telling you, it is better than you minding your own business and out of nowhere the sky falls. The sky literally falls on you.
Someone said it would rather happen when they are drunk and
oh my god.
Do you understand? But you know, one of my ways of avoiding regret is that I do it. I'm like, I'm going to do it. As the minute it tickles me, I'm not even going to question it out. Whether I am experimenting on something, whether it is formal, whether it is, I'm like, I would rather do it than not do it, because the haunting of not taking action for me is even worse. Because that you cannot take back.
The ifs, the
But
maybes.
exactly. But if you did an action, or maybe said something that you shouldn't have, or maybe did something that affected somebody in a negative way, or impacted somebody in a negative way, you have the opportunity to apologize. You have an opportunity to, take a second chance. You have an opportunity to make things right. You have an opportunity to even create, a bond. But let's first leave that for a bit. You may be wondering, are there people who don't experience regret? And they are there, and they're just a handful. About 10% of the world's population do not experience regret. And studies go on to show that 90% of people, it goes on to say, a study in a recent issue of the Personality and Social Psychological Bulletin shows that 90% of adults have deep regrets about their lives, and that the more that the more they dwell on it, the worse the quality of their life tends to get. That means we all experience, a big majority of the world's population does experience regret. And there is also a theory that just a handful of people, you could call them superpowered people, have no remorse or no regret to the things that they have done. And a person who is incapable of feeling remorse is often diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. So people with antisocial personality disorder are people who have no regard for society, no regard for norms, culture, views. They don't care about you.
But
I don't care.
But don't you think that it's very interesting how we make these personality disorders seem very bourgeois? No, that is not an antisocial person. That is just the devil entering your mind. How can you be there and you do not have remorse? I've come across people in my circle that do not show any sign of regret or remorse or even pain. Like, how do you live on earth like that?
Exactly. They are called sociopaths or psychopaths. But then again, studies also show that you don't have to be any of this. You don't have to have any of these personality traits to not experience remorse. Because sometimes it's just ignorance. Do you understand? Some people do things out. Some people do things out of ignorance, and they don't feel anything wrong with it. It's like, where I come from, that is allowed, so I don't care to change that.
But there are also other people who will argue that pain has become part and parcel of their lives, and that is why remorse is something they do not consider.
I'll tell you something. I think there's a story of a certain lady who was, not even a lady, she was actually a young girl, who was raped multiple times by the father, and the mother could not even help, because every other time this woman was on the man's side. I think was fearful of the husband, or fearful that people will get to know what happens in their household. And this man raped his child over and over again. What happened is the child, of course, went to school. She had no regard for anyone, and no one actually really understood that. People were like, oh my God, she's so rude. Oh my God, she has no remorse. She has no feelings. Until when I think she was at university, she actually was at Inkosi University. Then there was a retreat. I actually attended it. And this lady stood and narrated her story. I don't know after how much courage. And when she narrated her story, you could actually understand where she's coming from. If your parent, your father has no regard, has no remorse for you and what they're doing to you every day, actually raped her, made her, go through multiple abortions. The mother had no regard for her feelings at all. You cannot blame such a person. But until you get to know their story, you would not judge them for having no remorse.
Actually, I think I agree. There's people who actually don't ever feel any sort of remorse or regret. I was watching, I know it's going to sound a bit weird, but I do watch true crime a lot, yes? So I was watching a Netflix docuseries, I Am a Killer. And about 8,000, since the introduction of the death penalty actually in the US, about 8,000 people have been put on the death row. And there's this guy that they were interviewing, and he said he would do it again. This was like 25 years ago, because he committed the crime when he was about 17 years, and he says, I would do it again. And the reasoning behind it is that for him growing up, he watched his father beat his mom so much that at 17, when he saw another man beat another woman, and at that point he saw that he was able to actually defend someone else and step in and do something. He stepped in and killed another man, took someone else's life, and he said he would do it again. So I think you can say people actually don't have regret or remorse because of their past experiences.
Yeah.
You know, you've been sexually abused, you've been maybe you lack attention from your parents, or your parents are not even around. So you feel like it's only right that you transfer the pain to the next available person. Like you have no regard of how they feel.
That's true.
Like you have zero regard of how they feel. So I agree with the statistics that Sarah did mention, that is people actually who have zero regret, like they do not care at all. Yeah.
Absolutely, and that for me is just very heartbreaking, and it's also very scary because now you encounter somebody who was raised on survival, and now for them they only know to always get in survival. It's you have to get them before they get you type of mentality. Do you understand? But then again, you may be asking the question, so let's double back. Why do we do things that we know we will regret? This is me, Apollo Sarah. This question is for me, and I'd like to answer that question. And it may seem simple, but information in our brains that we use to make decisions is just based on objective. All right, and it's not really factual data. So when we do things, we are coming from a place of experiment or experiential. So it depends on our circumstances, it depends on the environment, depends on how we were raised, depends on our culture, our background, it depends on opportunity. So that is all that brings us to a point of making decision. Not a lot of people can sit down and be rational. Even sometimes when you think you're rational, you're really not rational because you're still making that decision within the boundaries of what you already know. So what is the most likely outcome, the better outcome for me in this situation? And many times the better outcome that we think for us is not actually the best outcome for everybody around us or for us in general. So we later on just go on to regret. So now I'm asking the question of the day. Do you think regret helps us make better decisions?
To a greater extent, I think so. Yeah, to a greater extent, I think so. Because if someone pisses you off and you're able to say, you know what? Instead of me, you know, fighting back, or instead of me just getting a stick and just beating the hell out of this person, let me refrain, step back, reassess the situation, and back away. You have a choice. At the end of the day, you have a choice to make. And I feel like as right-thinking members of society, choice is something that, you know, comes a part of our daily lives. You know, you make the choice to wake up in the morning and go to this place and eat. You make the choice to, you know, take a shower. You make a choice to basically do everything. So for me, the same applies to the things that you do. If you know you're going to do something that is going to cause a negative outcome, there's a likelihood that you'll fall back from it. You'll say, no, I would rather not do this. You know, like you weigh your options. So for me, I think, yes, the idea that you could regret something later on and you maybe have no chance to turn it back or change it around, could actually influence how, you know, you make your decisions in life. It could.
But there's some people who just never learn.
I was about to say, but I personally am a very curious person. Is it the aspect of not learning or just being curious? Like, I want to know, if I did this, what's the worst that could happen? Will I die? If I want to die, then I think I'll go ahead and do it. Honestly,
people actually ask themselves that question of what's the worst that could happen. Like, but then I think I'm rational enough to, you know, understand this will lead me in a terrible, terrible space, or this was actually just going to be normal. So,
and in a situation where the chances are 50-50.
Oh, 50-50.
Yeah.
I would still go ahead and do it.
I think that would explore a bit. I would try and see, touch the fire and see if it actually bugs.
But to answer what Sarah had asked in regard to whether, you know, regret could either shield us from making certain decisions or even maybe not repeating the same things, I would say it could go two ways. Because like now for the story that you gave, even while I understand where she comes from, but for those who did not understand, they saw her as a toxic person. Some people go through situations and they become totally terrible people. There are others who go through situations, regret them, but learn and become better. So for me, it goes a two-way. But in regard to regret, you know, helping me to make certain decisions, yes, definitely. But I'm a very curious person. I keep asking, what is the worst that could happen? If it's not a situation where my father will disown me, I'll go ahead and do it, honestly. Honestly.
Well, for me, I would say yes, regret to a certain extent actually helps you make better decisions It can help you to not be impulsive, especially if you have made decisions before out of, is it impulsive? Impulse, yes.
Impulse.
Trust me, the next time you'll first sit back and have a few minutes and, think about it. But also on the other hand, I feel like regret, if you're the kind of person who says, I regretted this time. What if I do it this time? Won't I regret again? It can hold you back from your possibilities. It can hold you back from opportunities.
Yeah.
Businessmen always take the biggest risks.
Yeah.
You understand? They'll go get a loan of billions of money even when they don't have it. But because
But
it's a risk,
what
it's a risk.
businessmen are we talking about?
You know
that
the
take billions
businessmen
of
we are
money?
talking about. But
Exactly.
here's the thing. And sometimes it actually works out. Let's talk about the lottery. When you buy tickets and what, it's usually the chances are 50-50. You might not do it, and then someone else wins it, like, oh my God, this could have been my chance.
Yeah.
And you might do it and you
For
lose.
the next 100 times.
Oh yes, and you might do it again and you lose. So yes, it's a good thing. It helps you make better decisions, but it can also hold you back from good things, from possibilities. Yeah.
Because
the
you keep
fear
living
of
on the edge.
The fear of the unknown.
of
We talked
repeating
about
the
it,
same
of the
mistake.
same
Oh
mistake.
yes, that is
Yeah.
very important.
But still, with a fear of repeating the same mistake, I think, like she mentioned, she gave an example of businessmen. I think it's more than I will regret if I do not take this business adventure,
Yeah.
if I do not invest money in this. I think it's other, factors of, where am I in life? What am I looking to achieve in this time frame? Like purpose and all those things infused together. Not just I will regret if I don't spend this 1 billion
exactly,
USD.
wouldn't you rather go ahead and do something other than regret for not trying? At least try and fail, but do not fail to try.
And the risk is about trying. The risk is the trying bit.
Exactly.
No,
Actually, yes,
The
risk
risk is
is
the trying
trying.
bit.
Taking the chance
Yeah.
is the risk. But the part where, and that is absolutely beautiful, I absolutely agree. But the part where people are afraid to, repeat the same mistake, where it actually holds you back, is when it comes to interpersonal relationships.
Yes.
It could be with family, it could be with your friends, it could be with relationships. We have seen people who have just had one small heartbreak, and now
Yeah,
everybody.
but sorry, why are you calling it small? Every heartbreak is big.
Now everybody is the enemy. Now everybody just wants money. Now everybody just wants to use you. So it holds you back from creating even better bonds. That is one thing about regret that I could say. But then again, let's go on to talk about how can you overcome regret? And Shivan did say something that I just want to point out as was absolutely beautiful. Learning the lesson. Many times you find people who keep on repeating the same mistake. You find yourself in one toxic relationship after the next, or one toxic work environment or circle of friends after the next. Or you just find yourself, your health deteriorating, even farther and farther by the day, because you have not yet learned the lesson from the first time it happened. And there are many people like that. I mean, for me, I'll be honest, I have tried at least 3 times making the same mistake. But you say you can't get
Hoping
a different,
for a better outcome.
hoping for a better outcome.
Yes.
And yet you're applying the same methods to it. Sometimes it's not the journey, or let me say, it's not the destination that is the problem. It's probably the route that you're using. So sometimes you have to change the route, and we find ourselves, let me give an example of relationships. We find ourselves in one toxic relationship after another, or in one broken relationship after another, and then the destination, say marriage, it's a beautiful place, but your route there, you're using the same Capania. It is not working. There are potholes. It flooded. You still want to use that
Panya.
So leave that panya alone. So ladies, how can you overcome regret?
For me, I think assess the situation before do something. Don't act out of impulse. Don't be impulsive. At the end of the day, when you're an impulsive person, you always make very terrible
Rash
decisions
decisions
that you
are
regret.
mostly wrong.
And with people, there's people who can never live with regret. There's people who actually go into depression because of
That's
regret.
true.
Exactly. So that is why you need to assess the situation and then know that if I'm going in 100%. Okay, maybe know that the chances are 50-50. Are you ready to take the fall when the 50 is on the negative? Are you ready? So I think for me, it's about you thinking about the outcomes, assess the situation like I mentioned earlier, and say if I'm going in 100% ready for whatever outcome it is. That is the only way you can avoid
Understand
regret.
the consequences.
Yes.
For me, the first one would be one that understand that you're not the only one.
Yes.
I know it can be very toxic advice, because there's a time I told a friend, just know you're not the only one who has gone through this, and they said, but now we cannot be living under the guise of but I'm not the only one. Also, Sarah is going through it. Also, Ag is going through it. You get, but the first thing is understand if it's not a death sentence. That is honestly, I'm thinking that is the worst thing that could happen to you, because your loved ones will mourn over you and you will definitely not live a fulfilled life. So understand that you're not the first, but also appreciate that you went through that process and now you have a spirit of discernment. And guess what? You're even in a better position to make better decisions and even advise your friends who are going through such a circumstance. So see it as a silver lining.
Yes, as an opportunity to rewrite.
To become a
story.
motivation.
Yeah.
To become a motivation.
So we shall be them one day. So overcoming regret, if it is something that you haven't done yet, I would say think rationally about it. Understand why you're doing it, how you're going to do it, so that you minimize the factors that could affect you later on after your plan has failed to work out. Like manage your expectations basically, so that even as you're going to do something, you understand that if it doesn't work out, these are the consequences, yeah? But regret in regard to something that you have done in the past, and you're finding out how, you can move past it, I would say forgive yourself, Starts with self-forgiveness, like, look to yourself and say, you know what, I couldn't have done this differently. At the time, maybe I was young, or maybe I didn't know better. I was ignorant. I did not know better. I could give an example, because these are things that are not new to us. Yes, we've seen them, we've had them, For example, you're out there, you're at campus, you're 21, you're 22, and you make a bad decision, you get pregnant, and yes, I don't condone getting an abortion, but maybe you've gotten an abortion and you've lived with that for the rest of your life. You're like, how did I get here? Why this? Like, will God forgive me? No, he forgives. Take it to God in prayer, pray about it. At the end of the day, his mercies are new every morning. So forgive yourself, and also pray about it at the end of it. If it is something that you cannot change, pray about it. It gets better.
Are you becoming a motivational
I
speaker?
know, right?
Slash
the last, but I like what you have said. I mean, if God has forgiven you, who else's permission do you need?
Who are you not to
Who
forgive
are you
yourself?
not to forgive me? Get over it.
The ladies this
God
morning.
has forgiven me. So anyway, here are some other ways that you can overcome regret if you're experiencing that today and you're watching. Number one, list the lesson. It's very important to understand and learn the lesson. Have you learned the lesson? And when you learn the lesson, it's important, write it down. I love to write things down, because writing things down is a reminder to myself that this is important, this is very fundamental, and it's also a reminder. So write it down, and write it down as a reminder to remind you that this is what happened, this was the consequences, and now you can move on and take a different route. Don't choose the same path, don't change the goal, don't change the mission, but use a different path. Well, sometimes you just have to throw away even the goal. Sometimes, but it's necessary. The other thing is rethink your best case scenario, okay? In the event that you're experiencing regret, when you move forward, think of your best scenario, the best outcome that is going to give you more positives than negatives. Number 3, try to forgive yourself. Priva mentioned this and explained this very beautifully. Number 3 is try something new to distract yourself. Some people are overcome with so much regret, it drives them to a place of depression, it drives them to a place of almost insanity. Other people start experiencing high levels of anxiety. Other people now, even it starts to affect their self-esteem. So try to find new things to distract you and take you away from that action that you did or did not do. Number 5, make amends if you need to. If you've hurt someone, make amends. Apologize. It's very important to apologize. And apologize sincerely from the bottom of your heart. Okay? It will bring you, not only just you peace, but the other person. And then the next one is write down your regrets and then fact check them. Sometimes we have regrets based on our feelings, and sometimes it's not necessarily something that you should even be ashamed of, because shame is regret. Remorse, shame, that is all regret. So fact check it. There's a difference between fact and feelings. Is that just how you're feeling? You overshared. Okay, I overshared. It was embarrassing, but it helped me get a lot off my chest. Do you understand?
Exactly.
So now I'm feeling ashamed because I let somebody see my
A real-
vulnerable side. You understand? So sometimes you need to fact check it. Is it something that should be weighing heavy on your head like a pot? No. Number 7 is try grief journaling, because some people, when they suffer regret, they are actually grieving. Because some people have survivor's guilt. For instance, when you survived, say, an accident and your friend did not, so now you're guilty. You hate yourself. You feel very ashamed that you're the one who survived, and yet it could have even been your idea. Let's go for the road trip, and then now your friend has lost her life.
Terrible.
That is awful. So you need to write it down. It's important to journal, write down your feelings. It's also very therapeutic. And then the last one is find other people with similar regrets, and you can actually start a support group. But before we go, I'd like to leave you with this video. Please watch it.
The answer is...
Well, there you have it. I don't even need to add anything to it. Well, that is Matthew Hassey, and he's a life coach and also relationship coach. If you're curious, just follow him on social media and he will help you. So regret is an important emotion, and it helps us be a better person. That is all I had for you in this segment of our views. Keep watching Sunrise at Sea.
Well, one of the important lessons that I've learned in today's discussion about regret is that it could be one of the powerful emotions that can actually foster change in our world. And, you know, I couldn't agree more. That is very, very powerful. And those were wise words that Sarah did share with us this morning. Well, we've come to the end of our show this morning. An all-new episode, of course, comes in tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. We did have various discussions this morning. One, we did talk about the opposition parties and the new agreement that they've signed in a bid to oust President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. Of course, we'd love to hear your reactions. So give us your feedback on social media. That is at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, CTV Uganda. Of course, we also do stream live on our website at www.ctv.co.ug. If you missed an episode or any segment, catch up with us on YouTube at CTV Uganda. My name is Priva Elivaz. Have yourselves a wonderful day.